WWE Saturday night's main event takes place on Saturday at the Nassau Coliseum in Uniondale, New York, and it should be a fantastic return of an 80s classic, as we know, one of my favorite shows back in the day in terms of the presentation and all that, and they're bringing it back. We know Jesse the Body Ventura will be on commentary, perhaps a championship also revived for this particular show, and several matches, of course, already announced for this particular card. We're going to make our predictions. Before we do, I keep telling you guys, hit that subscribe button, check out all the stuff we have here on the channel. Lots more live reaction shows coming here as well, and some other special stuff we've got in the works heading into the new year and WrestleMania 41 season here at Wrestling Reaction. Appreciate you, as always, for your support of the channel. And let's start with one of the more recent additions to the card, and that is Drew McIntyre. Going to make his return to the ring for a match against Sami Zayn. And we know McIntyre had been out for a bit after bad blood, after losing the Hell in a Cell match to CM Punk, and now he gets to take on Sami Zayn, with McIntyre already seeing the same thing that a lot of other people have seen in WWE, right? Seeing someone team with Roman Reigns and go back to their history with the Bloodline and how that, impacts Drew McIntyre, who has his own history with the Bloodline as well. And so he decided to take aim at Sami Zayn and Jey Uso for deciding to go back to Roman Reigns and team up at Survivor Series in the War Games match. And so McIntyre has made that his goal here now, to come out and potentially obliterate Sami Zayn. And, of course, Sami has found himself in the middle of not only that, but also kind of the ongoing rift between CM Punk and Seth Rollins. And so it kind of inserts an interesting dynamic into this match. Do you get either one of those, CM Punk or Seth Rollins, somehow playing a role in this particular match itself? I think this is one where, as you're making predictions, knowing that there's another big show to come over the next month, that's going to be the Raw Netflix debut in early January, on January the 6th, you feel like you're going to keep this stuff going with Drew McIntyre and Sami Zayn. And to do that, I think having McIntyre make his return and lose is probably not the best course of action here. So I'm going to pick Drew McIntyre to win this match against Sami Zayn. I just think it makes a lot of sense to kind of prove that Drew McIntyre is out with sort of a different sort of bit of revenge here in a different way than it was with CM Punk. And so if he's able to win this, then do you get Jey coming back into the fold? We know they mentioned on Raw this past week, Jey was not medically cleared to compete. And so because of that, you feel like Jey probably has to play a role in this as well. But again, this is what I think is working so well on Raw, is that you've got all these different parties, whether it's Punk, whether it's Rollins, whether it's Jey, they all have an interest in what happens here. And I think that's going to kind of keep the story pretty compelling leading into the Royal Rumble and all that. But I'll pick McIntyre to win this one. I think Sami Zayn can sort of afford the loss here. McIntyre coming off the loss to Punk at Hell in a Cell, making his highly anticipated return. I'm not sure he needs that right now. So give me Drew McIntyre to win this match here. All right, we know that there is going to be a women's title match on the card as well. Multiple women's title matches. We'll start with the first one, and that is the one we don't necessarily know who's going to be competing in just yet. I'm recording this before SmackDown, and we don't know who's going to be facing off in the match for the United States Championship. It's going to either come down to Bayley, Michin, Tiffany Stratton, or Chelsea Green. It's going to be one of those four winning this title. We know that. And so I'm just going to give you who I think should win the championship. All right? I don't know exactly what the match pairing is going to be because, again, we don't know that just yet. But I'm going to give you who I think should win the title. And I think from the start, for me, it's kind of been this same person. And if you go back to the Money in the Bank predictions we made this year, I decided after months and months, I told you guys, I said Tiffany Stratton is easily going to be the winner of the women's Money in the Bank briefcase. They're clearly setting her on that course to win this thing because she is the next big thing in terms of, being able to be in that position to be a top women's star in the future. So I told you all that, and then when we made our predictions, I said, you know what? At the last second, I'm going to make a change here because it's in Canada. I'm thinking there's going to be a lot of sort of momentum behind a certain competitor, and that's when I decided to change my pick to Chelsea Green. And it didn't work out so well. Tiffany Stratton still won the Money in the Bank, and Chelsea Green has continued to do her thing on WWE television since then, empty-handed without the title. But she's had her interactions with, again, a lot of these people that have been in this tournament. She's had, the match with Michin. She's had interactions with Tiffany Stratton, talking about how she's, the turn with Nia and all this other stuff. She's, of course, has history with Bayley. But I still think the first winner of this United States Women's Championship needs to be Chelsea Green. And I think it's because you can get a lot out of it with her. I feel like she has earned probably the opportunity to get this spot and to have kind of this big moment here on a Saturday night's main event show on NBC. I feel like Chelsea is kind of one of those unheralded sort of MVPs at times of WWE, weekly television. Maybe not so much as right now as she was in that sort of what I guess you could call sort of the hot period where we were getting into Money in the Bank. You could kind of see, the build for the fan reaction and all this stuff. But I think she would be great as the first United States Women's Champion, just because I think there's a lot you could do with that. Even if she were to not keep the belt, for months and months, I don't think that's how you're kind of necessarily looking for this with these mid-card titles. I know we kind of look at Triple H and think of these long title reigns and everything, but remember, they're needing to fill content now. If you have SmackDown going to 3 hours, Raw going to 3 hours, it's why they introduced these two belts for the women's division. And so, again, I'm not saying she needs to have a 6-month reign or anything like that, but I think having Chelsea use that, her character to be able to use that against everyone else. Hey, I was the first United States champion. For the women's side, I think she gets way more mileage out of that than anyone else in this picture. Again, not to knock Bayley, but I think she's, probably needs to keep her sights set on the women's world title picture, right? Tiffany Stratton has the cash-in opportunity. She doesn't need the United States Championship. And then Michin, I think, will probably be one of the great sort of, chances for her to be perhaps the person who takes the belt from Chelsea if they do it that way. Because, again, they built Michin up pretty well, I think, over the latter half of this year. So I like the dynamics with all those women, but I think that Chelsea is the best choice. So I'm going to pick Chelsea Green to be the first women's United States champion. Of course, this prediction may not, if she loses on SmackDown, then it won't matter. But I'm going to pick her because I think she is the one that could get the most out of this if she is the champion. Of course, there is another women's championship match on the card, and that is the women's world title, which is going to be Liv Morgan defending against IYO Sky. And I think this is sort of an opportunity where, you look at it just from this standpoint. We've said it's all been about Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley in this particular, world title picture for a while now. But now you add IYO Sky to the mix, and have they done enough to be able to make you think that she could pull the upset here? Well, I think it's an intriguing thought because, again, the Royal Rumble is such a big thing. And remember, like we said, before we even get to the Rumble, which is at the 1st of February now, you've got to do something big on that Raw on Netflix debut, I think, in terms of the women's world title. And so you wonder, is that where maybe they do Rhea Ripley versus Liv Morgan? If you want one of my predictions on what I think is going to happen on that show, I did that for members only. You can check out the video on the channel. We did a members-only video. I gave you 5 predictions for the Raw on Netflix debut. One of them involved a significant development with the women's world title. And so the question is, though, is this one where maybe if you're looking for an upset on this card, and we'll get to the other picks in a second, is this the best one where you have the option to where maybe IYO Sky somehow wins this title, with Rhea Ripley perhaps being the reason for that? We did see the tease between Rhea and IYO Sky both holding the belt to go off of Raw. Was that done intentionally to lead you in that direction to make you think, okay, maybe there is a shot here that, you kind of get the surprising upset win, you get a big talking point coming out of this show, a surprising development. Is that something that could happen? I think that at least piques my interest a little bit here. But at the same time, if you are, let's say, building towards a Rhea versus Liv Morgan match on that Raw on Netflix, if you're not doing that at WrestleMania 41, which at this point, I just think you probably need to do that sooner rather than later. I don't know that you can wait until then. I've got another idea for Rhea at WrestleMania 41, which we'll probably get to in a future video soon. But for now, I think Liv probably retains here to set up perhaps a big match, again, involving those two at the Raw Netflix debut on Netflix. But, so I think that is kind of a scenario I see playing out here. But again, I don't discount the idea that if you do want a sort of shocking development here, having IYO win the title. Now, the problem with that is if you do it and then you take the belt off of her right away, that's probably not going to sit well with a lot of fans. The loss may not sit well either, but I'm going to still pick Liv Morgan to retain the title here because it just feels like they have bigger plans in terms of that big blow-off match between Liv and Rhea, which I tend to think is coming sooner rather than later. All right, elsewhere on the card, we know there are 2 other title matches in terms of the World Championships. And we start with the triple threat match. Gunther defending against Damian Priest and Finn Balor. Not just Finn Balor, they made the change on Raw, as we know. I said I was fine with that because while I know some people may have wanted Balor to get the one-on-one match, I just think it's a lot more unpredictable in terms of how this match unfolds if it's not just Gunther versus Balor, because I don't think that there was going to be many people who believed that Balor was going to take that championship from Gunther, just like there weren't a lot of people who thought that Priest was going to take it from Gunther at Survivor Series. But if you have both in there in the same match, there are ways you can do this, right, in terms of the triple threat rules. And so I'd still, again, when we're making our predictions, I don't have a great path for either Priest or Balor winning the championship here. And if anything, it's probably more so the idea that they're going to cost each other, leading to a final blow-off match between them in singles fashion, which I know, like the Rhea, Liv, Priest, Balor stuff, like it's been going on for a while now. And you do feel like eventually they're going to move past that. I just don't know if we're there yet. Maybe this is the point where it sort of ends and you kind of move on from here. But again, not sure, because you could always have some sort of interference here. But I think, bigger picture wise, Gunther retaining the title here, even though the confidence issues and all that have been brought up, right? And they've kind of been playing Gunther in that tweener type role. He can play the baby face when it's Balor. He's kind of, going up against. He can kind of play the heel when he still has the frustrations with Priest. And so playing up that confident stuff with Gunther, I think, is important, because that story is going to come into play as you get into Royal Rumble and WrestleMania 41 season, based on who could be his opponent, right? Whether it is a CM Punk, whether it is a John Cena, guys like that who could be getting world title shots in the near future, who already have more of that experience, or maybe more of that championship pedigree from the past, those kind of things. And now you've got to shake in Gunther a little bit. It's an interesting concept. And so let's see what happens here. He's got the two people who have been kind of intertwined and really brought up as sort of footnotes in his championship run. Priest, with the help of Balor, right? Balor helps, Gunther win the title at SummerSlam. And then you have Balor in here, who is the other person who's kind of played a role in this. And so, yeah, I think it should be a really good match, but I can't pick anything other than Gunther retaining in this spot. All right, to our WWE Championship match. It's going to be Cody Rhodes defending against Kevin Owens. This is the big one. And yes, you've seen the teases, perhaps the Winged Eagle title making its return for one night only. Based on the tease we got from Triple H and Cody, that would be quite a fun, I think, sort of presentation to have that back here, bringing back Saturday night's main event, bring back the belt, the real belt, the Winged Eagle, WWF/WWE Championship would be tremendous. And I'm assuming that's what we're going to get here. Will that change anything as to the match? Well, we mentioned earlier, potential upsets. If you want to do something big, if you want to keep people on their toes, do you do a perhaps title switch here where you have Cody, somehow lose to Kevin Owens, and it's Owens walking out with the Winged Eagle title somehow, some way? Well, again, it's trying to understand where they're going and if they want to kind of do a slight detour before we get to that point, because everything we know still seems to be pointing in the direction of Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton at some point in the near future, once Orton returns, which maybe this is the spot to do it in. And as well, you've got the possibility of, again, we mentioned the Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn type match at WrestleMania 41, based on maybe Owens thinking the same thing about Sami Zayn that he thought about Cody Rhodes. Why would Sami go back and team with Roman Reigns just like Cody did? There's plenty of fuel and motivation for that match, which will not involve the WWE Championship. Cody, meanwhile, has multiple options. We said it could be Orton if The Rock's not in the mix. Could be The Rock. Could be Roman Reigns in some sort of combination at WrestleMania 41. So, again, a lot more possibilities with Cody as the champion, and so for that reason, I am going to pick Cody to retain. But you never know. For some reason, even though we talk about all these matches, and yes, if you looked at it from this standpoint, all the champions potentially retaining, I would not be stunned if there is, a match somewhere that they want to kind of pull that sort of big upset to kind of lead things into maybe a rematch or something else where the previous champion gets the championship back, perhaps on January 6th on Netflix. That could be a possibility. But I think, the best bets are still probably to pick the champions to retain here, just based on knowing kind of what the direction is going to be for Royal Rumble and WrestleMania 41 season. So I'll pick Cody to retain, but I think the most, interesting and entertaining aspect of this could be, does Randy Orton return? If he does, what does he do? How does Kevin Owens react if he loses this match? Those are all things I think you can play with here, kind of leading into, again, what we know is coming in terms of these big shows over the next couple months. So there you go, guys. There are my predictions. Probably pretty by the book here in terms of not many surprises, but there could be surprises on this show, right? You've seen probably the rumors that a potential Charlotte Flair return could be happening at Saturday night's main event? Is she going to make her way back in the fold? We've made predictions about Becky Lynch potentially returning on Raw, on Netflix. So there's a lot of big things in the works, and this is kind of the things that's going to kickstart everything. A big show here, a very important show, I think, in terms of storyline development, and we'll see what WWE has in store for us on Saturday night's main event. So, again, guys, appreciate you watching. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button as well. Give me your predictions for all these matches. What do you think is going to happen at Saturday night's main event? Give me your predictions in the comments. Appreciate you watching as always. And again, let me know your thoughts on this card and who's going to win at Saturday night's main event.